Hey everyone, welcome to the Roon ARC webinar. My name is Michael. I'm a product manager here at Roon. I joined the company about 8 months ago, and I have been focused more or less exclusively on building Roon 2.0 and making ARC a reality. So I could not be more excited to share it with you today. So in today's webinar, we are going to take a look at what ARC is, how it works, and some common questions about it. I will give you guys a quick product demo so you can see the ARC interface for yourselves and some of the fun things you can do with it. And then at the end of the webinar, I will be joined by Roon's Director of Product, Mike Fass, for a Q&A session. And there will also be a few members of our support team on hand answering any questions that you're posting in the Q&A section. So feel free to ask those questions directly in the webinar in the Q&A section, and we will do our best to get back to you. Cool. So in summary, I personally think that Roon ARC is the most exciting software release we've had to date. It seems like people are very excited about it so far and cannot wait to share it with you all today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So to kick things off, I'm going to play a Roon 2.0 intro video from our CEO, Enno. So this gives a pretty good overview of the latest updates in Roon.
Roon is the best music player for the home. It's compatible with all your audio gear, it's optimized for sound quality, and it provides rich information and opportunities to discover music. Until now, the only thing that really prevented Roon from being a complete music experience is that it only worked inside your home. Today, that's changing. With the introduction of Roon 2.0, everywhere will feel like home. Whether you're in your car, at work, or traveling, you'll have access to your library of artists, albums, playlists, and tags, no matter where you go, right from your phone. We've built a brand new app called Roon ARC, which is free for all Roon subscribers. It's designed from the ground up to be reliable even when your connection may not be, for example, on a 3G mobile network. While it's completely new, Roon ARC will feel very familiar because its user interface is based on the Roon apps you already use. Roon ARC connects to your Roon core over the air, giving you access to all your files and streaming content no matter where you are. If you have files in your music library, you can think of Roon 2.0 as a personal streaming service powered by your Roon core. At times that you're not connected, like on a plane, Roon ARC lets you store files from your music library on your phone for listening offline. Along with additional enhancements like native support for Apple Silicon, Roon 2.0 brings an amazing music experience to more people on more platforms. And Roon ARC truly gives you all your music everywhere you go.
Let's talk the basics of ARC. First thing is that Roon ARC is a brand new mobile app. It's separate from Roon Remote, and it's designed for out-of-the-house usage. 2, it's an extension of your Roon. So the entire Roon library that you've spent all of your time curating, building up, tagging, etc., all of that is what is contained in ARC. So it contains all your music, all your metadata, and all your history. Everything that your Roon is now on the go. Roon ARC is free for all Roon subscribers, so there's no additional cost. It's a part of your existing Roon subscription, or if you're a lifetime member, it is a freebie for you. And lastly, it is an app available on iOS and Android. Great, so I have another short video for you that explains a bit more about setting up Roon ARC and the actual technological structure of it. So let's take a look.
Roon ARC gives you the freedom to experience your entire Roon library and Roon's most powerful features without compromise, wherever you are in the world. To use Roon ARC, your core must be running Roon 2.0, which you can confirm on the About tab of Roon's settings. Roon ARC is designed to connect to your core from outside your home. In order for that to work, your home network will need to be configured to allow this connection. Roon can automatically configure most networks without manual setup. Simply go to the Roon ARC tab in Settings and look for the Ready message with the purple tick. If you see this, you're ready to start using Roon ARC. If you don't see the purple tick mark, don't worry. Most networks are easy to set up with some simple manual configuration. head over to our Help Center for more information. Now that you've set up your core and configured your network, the next step is to download the Roon ARC app for iPhone or Android phone. Once you've downloaded ARC, log in using your Roon credentials. ARC will then sync to your Roon core and you're ready to go. In order to use Roon ARC outside your home, remember that your core must remain on. However, music that you've downloaded to your phone will be available for playback even if it's not connected to your core, for example, in airplane mode. For further information on using Roon ARC, please visit the Roon Help Center.
Awesome. So now that we've covered what Roon ARC is and how it works, it's time for a little product demo. Okay, so here's ARC. It is, once again, your Roon app developed for a mobile form factor for on-the-go usage. So I have all of my same Roon stuff here. I've been listening to a lot of music recently on my Roon desktop, and ARC has that plugged in. So just one thing to call out, as we've said before, ARC is an extension of your Roon universe. It's now available to take on the go. So all of the data that you see here is the same Roon data that you would have on your Roon desktop. So brief kind of tour, we've got the home screen here with recommendations, recent listening trends, all of that good stuff. This is very, very similar to the Roon home screen you will have seen in the desktop version. If you click on the bottom here, we've got three sections. We've got home, search, and library. So on search, I can type in, let's say, Animal Collective. I've been very interested in them recently. I've got a bunch of results here. Once again, very similar to how you're used to using Roon. Okay, wonderful. And then if we go over here, I've got my library. So I've got all of my albums, artists, tracks, composers. I can see my playlists I've recently made, downloaded content, all of that. Wonderful. So that's kind of a brief tour of ARC. Now let's talk about how you'd actually use it. Okay, so let's talk about some ways that you might use ARC on the go. So for example, I have a trip coming up this weekend and I know I'm gonna be in the plane for a few hours. So I have a bunch of local music that I want to download for this plane ride. So let's talk about how you might do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my library in the bottom right. I'm gonna go to albums, and I've tagged a bunch of this on my Roon desktop already. I downloaded it, imported it from Bandcamp, and then I add this tag to all these records which says download for Paris. So now I know this is kind of the to-do list of downloads here. So let's open up this first album. This artist is Fumo Ninja. They're like a tiny indie rock band here in Lisbon. And I really like this record, bought it on Bandcamp, and I want to download it. So there's two ways. I can either open the album, and then in the top right, I have my download icon. Click that, boom, now it's queued up, and I have the circular progress indicator telling me how much progress we've made on that download. And I can even see down here by track which tracks have been downloaded yet. So that's one way. Or if I want to kind of go on a shopping spree, here in my browser, I can right-click on something. In the context menu, I've got the download option there. Boom. Note, again, these will only show up for local options, but any music on your core is firmly eligible, and I'm going to shop for some of these here. Wonderful. We'll grab this call Super Single as well. Okay. So imagine I'm in the airport. I'm at the gate. I've got like 10 minutes until my flight is leaving, and I want to just grab all of this music. So I can pop over to my downloads menu here and just see what I've got so far. And I think once all of these are done, that's probably enough to get me through this 2-hour flight. So just a couple notes on how downloads work for ARC. The first of which is the format in which we download music is exactly how it appears on your core. So for example, this record, once I go to that, I have it downloaded in 48K 24-bit. That's exactly how I grabbed it from Bandcamp. That's exactly what's on my core. And so that's exactly what will show up in my device. So we don't do any manipulation to the files, no transcoding. It's exactly how you have it originally. And one other note is we want to be mindful of not blowing up people's data plans. So by default, we only allow you to download on Wi-Fi because we know some of the files can be fairly heavy. But if you want to override that, you have the option to do so here in your settings. So you can flip it off and then boom, when I'm on the go on a mobile network, I can download whatever I like. Cool, so that is how you download in ARC. Okay, cool. So let's talk about some ways that you might use ARC to discover new music on the go. So for example, I am going to go see Panda Bear and Sonic Boom tonight because they've just released this new album called Reset. I'm a big Animal Collective fan, really love Panda Bear, but this Sonic Boom guy I don't know too much about. So first things first, I'm gonna add this to my queue, their new album. I've got it 96K coming from Qobuz. Awesome. I can plug in my DAC, my headphones, and listen to that in bit perfection on the go. Let's just take a spin and learn a bit more about this Sonic Boom guy. So I can click on the artist, I can see the overview here, I can see his info, his discography, all the same data that's in Roon. But let's just go to the overview for a second. Okay, I've already got some of his albums in my library, not gonna lie to you. I went shopping already for some of his new stuff. However, let's pop over to his discography because I want to learn a little bit more. So he's this British producer guy. I read a bit of info. Seems like he has a bunch of different side projects. Very, very cool. But on appearances, so it seems like Seven, the record by Beach House, which is like one of my favorite bands, seems like he was involved in some way. So I can read about this record. Beach House opted to work with Sonic Boom instead of longtime producer Chris Cody. That's pretty cool. Okay. Oh, he's credited here. He was a producer on this record. I did not know that. Okay, wow. So, I made a tag earlier of Sonic Boom stuff because I want to kind of do my homework on this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and add this record to that. Save for later. I'm going to have a big listening session and just kind of like go into this guy's back catalog later. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's say I want to also check out this side project, Spectrum. So it looks like this is, let's see, this is from 1992. This is their debut album. Great, so this seems like pretty instrumental stuff. So I will go ahead once again and add this album to the Sonic Boom stuff tag. Fantastic. And now, once I'm kind of prepping for my listening session, if I go over here to albums, and I filter by the Sonic Boom stuff tag, I have all of these records that I've just now learned of from Sonic Boom here in my browser, and I can just kind of listen to them one by one. Cool. So, whereas this might have been a process I could only do at home, now I'm listening to one record, I'm listening to this Panda Bear Sonic Boom thing, and just by clicking through and browsing and observing the connections, I learned that not only this Sonic Boom guy has been involved in 3 other bands, but he also co-produced one of my favorite records already. So there's a lot to do with both discovering new music and rediscovering music which you already have in your Roon library using ARC. Okay, so let's move to the FAQs now. The first topic I want to cover is port forwarding and network security. That has been the most popular, most frequently asked question so far. So the first component is port forwarding safe and secure. So port forwarding is a common protocol that's used in many applications. It's used frequently in gaming, it's used in Internet of Things, it's used frequently in home security. So if you're setting up a baby monitor, if you're setting up a security camera to watch footage of your house from an outside network, all of these tools will rely on port forwarding. So Roon has chosen this protocol to establish this outside connection to your core. Secondarily, what security measures does Roon take? First, Roon authenticates your user credentials and uses an encrypted transport. So what this means is that nobody from outside your network without your password and username can access your Roon. Secondarily, The port is only listening when Roon is off. Sorry, the port is only listening when Roon is on. If Roon is off, no one is listening at that port. So if you have someone who has somehow discovered what that port number is and is pinging it, if Roon is not actually on, it's like a phone that is ringing and no one is ever answering. Lastly, some users would prefer to set up their networks manually and don't like using UPnP. And if you are one of these people, you are more than welcome to simply manually set up your connection. There is a UI to do so, and we have guides on our help site for navigating most router configurations. Okay, second question, data usage. I don't have much data. Will ARC use up my data plan? By default, if you leave ARC on automatically pick best quality, this takes that consideration into account. So what this does is if you're on a Wi-Fi network, ARC will automatically pick the highest quality possible. And if you're on a mobile network, it will automatically pick balanced. And what this is roughly 320 kilobyte per second streams. And at this setting, 1 hour of streaming will use about 100 megabytes of data. So choose whichever setting is most appropriate for you. If you'd like to change it, yes, you can control it. The preferences are available in settings, and you're able to customize streaming quality on mobile and Wi-Fi networks. And lastly, how can I minimize data usage? The first recommendation would be to use the bandwidth optimized setting. Secondarily, you can download music directly to your device and listen offline. And third is you can flip your device into offline mode by just going into settings, looking for the offline mode switch, and flipping that. Downloads. So what can I download? Due to licensing restrictions, Tidal and Qobuz audio cannot be downloaded. However, ARC can download any local audio directly from your core. In what format? So the original file in its original format is downloaded directly from your core to your phone. There's no transcoding, there's no alterations, it's exactly as you have it attached to your core. Okay, so let's talk about ARC's audio capabilities. First of all, can ARC play bit-perfect audio? On iOS, we've confirmed bit-perfect output to USB DACs, supporting DOP playback, MQA DACs, etc. And on Android, ARC will deliver audio at the highest possible rate allowed by the device. This is usually 48K. We ping the device to ask for its base rate. However, if you are looking for the highest possible quality, a USB DAC will usually allow you to output at a higher rate than your Android device. And this is all to say, we are currently focusing on our efforts on improving audio capabilities, and this is an area that we are investing in heavily, and it's immediately on the roadmap. Okay, so how can I optimize ARC's audio playback? If you would like to optimize for playback, there's 3 things you can do. The first is to disable volume leveling. The second would be to set your streaming quality preferences to original format to ensure you're getting the highest quality possible. And then lastly, just check the playback quality settings directly. You can use Signal Path to see exactly what's happening to your audio at every step in the flow, in case you have any doubts. So it's important to call out that with Roon 2.0 and the release of ARC, this is just the beginning. Our mission was to create an app which allows you to listen to your Roon while on the go. We've done that with ARC, and now there's a very exciting and a very bright future ahead of us. We have a massive list of suggestions and work that we've planned, so I want to give you guys a little bit of insight into what's coming around the corner for Roon ARC. The first of which is audio improvements. This includes DSP, how Roon handles audio specifically on Android, and a lot more. So that is our main focus. We want to make Roon ARC the absolute best quality and best experience. So that's our first priority. Secondarily, CarPlay. We want Roon ARC to feel like a native app. We're developing a native app for Roon ARC to work directly with CarPlay, and that's in the works and currently under development right now. Beyond that, there's a lot of work that we have planned, and it's going to be a very exciting next few months, quarters, years for Roon ARC, but please tell us where you'd like to see Roon ARC go. If you have any suggestions, feel free to drop them in our community. Otherwise, reach out to us on socials, emails, etc. We're all ears, and we are definitely paying attention and importing those into our process. Hopefully now that you've learned a bit more about Roon ARC, you will want to try it for yourselves. We've created a wealth of resources for Roon ARC available on our Help Center website, and our tech support team is also available on Community to help answer any questions you may have. Awesome. That wraps up the first half of our webinar. I'd like to open things up now for a Q&A. Hey, everyone.
Well,
Great. So I can see we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A. So Mike and I will go through some of those right now. The first one I wanted to talk about was, can you talk about some of the interesting technical challenges that the team had to think about in adding remote functionality? So I think one of the biggest differences from how Roon works and how ARC works is the kind of fickleness of internet connectivity at a given moment. So there's a lot of specific challenges that come with that. One is developing do we have internet connection system, which we went through multiple iterations of, took months of, Brian, our CTO, was going on bike rides for, like 10 miles a day, noting exactly when he would gain and lose connectivity. And that iteration process got us to where we are now. And one of the interesting things about that is we have the unique problem in ARC, which we don't have in Roon, of changes that can happen on either the Roon or ARC side at any given moment, which may not go to the other side. So every time we lose connectivity, we have to have a mechanism for syncing that connectivity. So if you'll notice in ARC, you have the ability to pull down, which will refresh the data that you have there. But automatically, when you go to a new page, we're triggering these syncs. But I would say that was one of the biggest challenges and kind of fun problems to work through.
yeah, just to add a little bit to that, like one of the kind of defining characteristics of Roon's architecture is that it's sort of pushing lots of data around your network, and the remote is always in sync with the core. You can open up your laptop and your tablet, and you can click a favorite on one device and watch the little heart light up on the other one, and back and forth, and like everything is always in sync in your network. And that's been kind of core to the way that we've delivered performance with Roon Remote in the home, because you're on your Wi-Fi and you should have ample bandwidth to push this data around and keep everything in sync. And so for ARC, we really needed to rethink all of that from the ground up. What happens when you're making a playlist in the car and you drive through a tunnel? Right? What happens when you're listening to a really long song and you go out of service or whatever? So it really required a complete rethinking of how we do browsing, how we do playback, and how we sync edits and things like that around. Right? When you add an album in ARC, how does that work when it's in communication with your core, and how does it work when you're like hiking in the woods and you won't be back online for hours and that kind of stuff, right? So this was, this took well over a year to rethink every little aspect of the product and every screen and every function, and make sure that everything works as reliably as it does with Roon Remote in your home, where all these changes are being synced immediately, to ARC, where some of this stuff is happening in a sort of a stateful way that is, living on your mobile device until you're back online. So it was a pretty big change. And, like Michael said, I think we all spent, the better part of a year wandering around and seeing if we could break this thing, and coming back to the developers with logs and saying it failed in the exact same spot that, this competitor's product always failed. And then finally being like, okay, it's working better than anybody else that we've tried. Like, I think we're getting pretty close. So it was a long road to get to the point where we felt that we had something that we could confidently ship out to all of our customers. So we've been really happy with the response there. So yeah, it was a big effort, big lift on that one.
Cool. Okay. One of the other questions that we've got is, I see that Roon ARC will be available on the Astel & Kern SP3000 player. Will it be available on other Astel & Kern players, i.e. the SP1000? So we have already started testing certain dApps basically the minimum requirement for DApp compatibility right now is that it runs on Android 9 or above. So that's kind of the initial factor. We have an ongoing program to test various different dApps, of which the Astle and Kern suite is one. And so it's kind of an ongoing process. We've verified compatibility with certain players, but it's an ongoing process, and we'll be adding more and more and additional features within ARC to support their full audio capabilities. Cool. So there's one question about how technically does the data and the streaming pathway work in ARC? So ARC is remote, and you're flying down the highway. I pick an album that is served by Tidal. Does it stream through Roon ARC and then back out of my network to ARC? So the way that this works is that the core, once again, is the brain of your operation. So the core, you can think of the core kind of like a switcher, like a traffic switcher. You receive, let's say you want to listen to a Tidal stream. We ping your core and we say, hey, we want this Tidal track. And then we go fetch that audio from Tidal and serve it back to you directly. So the core is kind of establishing those connections. And if you want local music, there's no middleman. You just go to your core directly, and then that audio is served up from you. And one thing to note there is that Tidal, Qobuz, and your local audio will all have different kind of audio quality settings. So we use Opus for all of your music that sits locally on your core, but Tidal and Qobuz have their own formats and their own settings that they deliver to us. So that's kind of all baked into your audio quality. But roughly the balance setting that we mentioned earlier, which is default when you're on a mobile network, is 320 kilobyte per second, Opus or MP3, depending where it's coming from.
I see there's a couple questions about ARC on tablets and ARC in desktop. I can just answer that one real quick. I can tell you that tablet design work is in progress. We haven't started building anything quite yet, but obviously there's a lot more real estate on tablet. There's a lot more opportunity to add additional functionality and controls and have a little bit more space in the layout. So, we know that Roon users have been waiting for, like, on the go for this kind of functionality for years. And we didn't want to delay the delivery of that functionality on people's phones before we had the whole tablet designs right and desktop designs right and all that kind of stuff. So, if you've used ARC, you know right now that it's designed for phones. But I can tell you that tablet designs are in progress, and it is something that we are hoping to ship soon. As far as desktop functionality, I don't have any announcements or news to make on that right now. It's definitely something that we're thinking about. We have heard that request from people loud and clear. It is something that we considered in the early architectural decisions of how ARC is built. So it's not something that we're, that is impossible for us to do in the future. Exactly how we do it, native applications, web, whatever. There's a lot of options at our disposal. And it is something that we are thinking about for the future, but I can tell you that tablet is coming soon, and desktop platforms. If that's something that you're really interested in, please make sure to come on the community site, vote for those feature requests. Michael and myself and the whole team pays pretty close attention to what's being voted on there. And so, please let us know if that's important to you. And it is something that we are thinking about for the future.
Cool. So one of the questions I'm seeing is about downloads in ARC. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in some of the FAQs. But once again, ARC can download content which is local on your core. And there are legal reasons why that's been the case. Basically, the streaming companies have agreements with labels that prohibit them from kind of forwarding their legal rights to the music that they own to other services to allow them to actually download those files. So that's kind of the basis of that feature. But once again, any music that sits on your core locally, you're able to download.
I see we have a question here about why did we create a separate app for ARC as opposed to building this functionality into the existing Roon Remote apps. I kind of touched on, there's kind of like a technical, practical reason, and then there's also sort of a like more of a user experience question. From a technical perspective, like I was mentioning before, a lot of how Roon Remote is built is designed to work on a local network, right? It's designed to push data around very, very fast, high bandwidth, no idea of like losing connectivity. If you've ever been using Roon on a laptop and you've walked too far across the backyard, you know, like as soon as you're getting out of Wi-Fi signal, Roon Remote does not stand on its own, right? And so because this was such this was so kind of like ingrained and built into how Roon Remote was built, converting Roon Remote to be something that can function while you're driving down the highway and connectivity coming and going, or on an airplane for 10 hours, you know, all these cases where we knew ARC had to perform properly, re-architecting Roon Remote from the ground up to work in all those cases would actually be a significantly bigger project. It would be, I mean, this already was, like I was mentioning earlier, like it already was about you know, over a year for us to get this sort of from inception to a product that we were shipped out the door. So really, like ARC was designed from the ground up to function in these scenarios that Roon Remote simply wasn't. The kind of the more lightweight explanation here is that ultimately ARC was designed for these sort of on-the-go use cases, right? Pulling your phone out, hitting play and putting it back in your pocket, like finding something really quickly while you're driving down the highway, like downloading some albums before you hop on an airplane. Ultimately, like this was really an opportunity for us to build an app from the ground up, from a user experience standpoint and from a design standpoint that was really built to address these kinds of cases in ways that, you know, there's a lot of stuff in Roon Remote, you know, setting up your Roon core for the first time and configuring your audio devices and doing editing. And I mean, there's an endless list of extremely kind of complex functionality in Roon Remote that we didn't feel like was a requirement to be able to access your music on the go. So, you know, this allowed us to get something out the door sooner, but I think it also allowed us to not kind of dilute the experience of Roon Remote at home, which is this extremely powerful, you know, extremely powerful experience that does 100 different things. It allowed us to deliver a better product for on the go that does the, you know, the smaller set of use cases really, really well. So I think this made for a better product and it allowed us to address this more quickly. And, you know, that's kind of you know, this is kind of laying the groundwork for the on-the-go experience and all the directions that we want to take that without sort of splitting the baby in half there.
So I'm seeing a couple of questions about Android Auto. I think in general, we've heard your concerns and desire to have ARC work in the car as seamlessly as possible. And both CarPlay and Android Auto are absolutely on the roadmap and extremely high priority for us. Those are already underway. So yes, absolutely, that is on that's on the plan for us. I see okay, there's another question. Is the ability to transfer a cue to and from Roon ARC the same way there is for different audio endpoints within Roon on the roadmap? So right now, your cue in ARC is your cue in ARC and your cues in Roon are your cues in Roon. There are plans to unify these in the future, but for now, they are separate. What I would say is, as a valid workaround for now, if you're listening to something in, let's say, in your home setup in your living room in Roon, and you'd like to pick it up, you can just pop open the home screen and see your recently played. And that's a pretty good way to dive in. Or you could use playlist or tags or whatever other mechanism you have at your disposal. But your data that you're seeing in ARC is the most recent accurately reflected data that you're seeing in Roon. So if you're listening to something, it's going to sync to your ARC immediately. And to that point, after listening to tracks in ARC, is the number of plays synced back to Roon? Yes, it is.
I see we have a question about Roon 2.0's internet requirement, which I thought I'll try to touch on this one briefly. We've discussed this quite a bit on the community site. I encourage everyone to check out the discussions there and look into that stuff. But I can just tell you, like, from my perspective, and I think I can speak from Michael on this one. We both work on product, so we're kind of always thinking about how to deliver value for our customers, whether that's lifetimers or monthly, annual subscribers. And this is kind of always a question of, like, how do we deliver value for people based on the product that they purchased on day one, particularly for a lifetimer. You purchase a lifetime subscription on day one for a certain product, and there's kind of like two ways that we deliver value. We want to make sure that you can continue to have access to the product that you paid for, and we also want to continue to grow and develop the product over time, right? There's an expectation here that Roon is going to continue getting better. Bugs are going to be fixed. It's going to perform better. We're going to add new functionality like ARC, right? And one of the things that we've been really feeling over the last 2 years is that the architecture that we built for Roon, that we determined, in 2014 and 2015, it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of showing its age. And so there's, when we build functionality into Roon, in a lot of cases, we've had to, in the past, develop sort of like, well, how does it work when the core is online? And then we have a sort of a secondary fallback version for when the core goes offline, and taking functionality and like forking it this way ends up just generally slowing everything down, right? It means that we have to build functionality twice. It means we need to think through how it works in the best case scenario and how it works in the worst case scenario. And this kind of, building all of these functions twice, both for functionality in the app right now, and for things that we want to build over the coming, months and years, the architecture was just really slowing us down for where we want to take the product in the future, right? And so this was something that this is not a decision that we took lightly, but we thought about this a lot, and ultimately we decided that the vast majority of Roon customers, like really the overwhelming majority, are using streaming services. I'm pretty sure we have more customers that are subscribers to both streaming services than we have customers that are subscribers to no streaming service or only using local files. So for the vast majority of Roon users, most of their listening, or a lot of their listening, is happening online anyway. But we were thinking about, how do we continue to deliver value to people who want Roon to keep growing long term and want us to continue delivering new features and improvements, and grow the product over time, and how do we deliver value to people who are going to have a tough time with this online requirement, whether it's because of what your internet connection is like, or you use Roon on a boat, or you use Roon in a cabin, or whatever the scenarios are where this online requirement comes into play. So for us, ultimately, this was an area where we decided that this kind of like sort of branching of the product actually did make sense, right? We've had a long-term sort of policy for the organization that we don't generally allow downgrading. From day one, Roon has always been a product that is constantly in communication with our servers. There's functionality that's being delivered from the cloud. It's mixing with the functionality that's happening in your core. And this sort of seamless mix has always been a part of the product. So, downgrading has been something that we've always sort of, it's basically been against our policies from the beginning. But in this case, just because we knew for some users, this online requirement was going to be a problem, we did go through the effort to say, we're going to fork the product. We're going to have this 1.8 version. We're going to go through the App Store submissions and the QA and the release overhead and all of the work that goes into having two versions of Roon out there. And we're going to say, if you are a lifetimer or a subscriber and you've been using Roon for a while with the ability to be offline for some number of days or weeks, you can continue to do that with Roon 1.8. And that was an area where we felt like it was worth making that investment to make sure that everyone can continue to use Roon as they paid for on day one. But ultimately, in the future, we want to continue to take Roon in the direction that we want. We want to be able to make Roon even more connected. And, we all live with services that require the internet, whether it's Netflix or Alexa or whatever. There's so many products that we all use in our day-to-day life, and ultimately we want Roon to continue to grow as a modern product. We want to enable sharing functionality. We want to enable a variety of other things that we have on the roadmap that really do require this always-on internet connection. So if the internet requirement doesn't work for you, there is this downgrade 1.8 legacy option that you can use. If you kind of want to be on the cutting edge and see where Roon is going and continue having the latest and greatest, this internet requirement is something that we feel really strongly is going to enable sort of the next generation of functionality and improvements in the product. And so these are tough decisions. There's a lot of trade-offs here, but ultimately we really wanted to make sure that we can keep moving the product forward. If that's your number one interest, and you can continue to use Roon the way that you have in the past, if that's your priority. So kind of that's a sort of my perspective on this stuff. Obviously, there's been a good deal of discussion about this on our community site, and we're hearing all the feedback on this stuff, but I don't think it's something that we have any plans to change right now based on feedback. Ultimately, we want Roon to keep growing, and this is a really important part of our long-term plan. So we appreciate everyone who's been supportive of the decision and who's voiced their opinions either way.
So there's one question here, will basically concerning switching from using ARC in your car to an at-home scenario. So actually I want to say around 2 weeks ago, we've released a feature in ARC where you can control the device output directly from the Now Playing screen. So if you go on the Now Playing screen, we have basically, if you're on iOS, you have a menu where you can open up all of your AirPlay and all of your Bluetooth audio options and quickly switch between them. Note that if you are listening on Bluetooth and you have, like, let's say, headphones, and then you hop in your car, ARC should be able to handle those transitions seamlessly without any stoppage or any manual intervention needed. So if you are coming home and let's say you want to play from an AirPlay or Bluetooth speaker, ARC can handle that directly. And as we mentioned before, we're working on further deeper integrations with zone control and at-home listening and things like that. Can I access my live radio stations in ARC? So this was something, this is something that we are planning on doing. It was initially scoped for the first release of ARC. As we got down to the wire, you kind of have to make certain trade-offs in order to get this thing out and get it in everyone's hands. I mean, as we said before, the goal was to get ARC out in the wild, to get everybody to be able to listen to their Roon on the go. And so in order to do that, you kind of have to make a couple trade-offs, see, which things are going to make that initial cut. It's in there. It's on the roadmap. We were just talking about it earlier today. So that's definitely in our plans.
Yep. I see a question here about identifying local files. Like internally, we've been kind of calling this the find downloads feature. You may have seen this in apps like, Netflix and things like that, where they kind of give you some ways to find the list of stuff that you might want to download for offline listening. And I can tell you that is something that we are working on. We have finalized designs and product direction recently, and we're looking forward to making it much, much easier and super slick. I'm heading on a family vacation next week, and I'm looking forward to being able to look at a nice long list of all of my local albums and getting a bunch of stuff queued up for the airplane and for my vacation. And that is another one, like Michael was saying. Ultimately, you can always find 100 things that could be a little bit better, or a feature that feels like it's missing, it's too big of a hole. These are all really, really tough decisions that Michael and I and the team think about all the time. And so ultimately, we were really, really proud of the 1.0 version of ARC, but Michael and I have a long list of things that we want to add to the product, which seemingly grows every day, especially with questions like this and so much feedback that we're getting about the app all the time. But this is kind of what Michael and I wake up and think about every day is what are we going to build next? what are the most important holes in the product to address, what needs to be working better, what, where are we hearing complaints. And so all this feedback is super, super useful for Michael and I as we sort of prioritize what we're going to work on next. And the ability to find content to download is something that's definitely getting near the top of the list. So we're working on that one.
Yep. Cool. I feel like it's
I see there's a question here about bookmarks, and I can tell you that it is something that we're thinking about. It is not a simple problem, unfortunately. Without going into the weeds too much, I'll just say there are some bookmarks in Roon that would make sense in ARC, like take me to my albums sorted by recently added. That would work. That could work today. There's also bookmarks that could be involving focus. We don't have focus in ARC right now, but it is something that we're thinking about for the future. But if you have a bookmark that takes you to your albums focused on high-res jazz, we don't have anywhere to take you there in ARC right now because focus does not exist in ARC. And then we have other stuff, screens that exist in Roon that may or may not ever exist in ARC. And so figuring out where the bookmark takes you in that case is another challenge. So we are thinking about what we can do here. It is not a small project. And so my recommendation for the moment is if there is a bookmark that is like critical for your day-to-day use, you have a bookmark that you visit all the time. For the moment, I would use tags for that functionality. You can go open up Roon, you can select all the albums or all the artists or whatever you have, whatever you have being returned by that bookmark. You can select all the content and tag it, and then you can open up that browser in ARC, focus in on that tag, and you'll be seeing the same content. It won't update dynamically as you add new high-res jazz albums or whatever. That's what bookmarks are supposed to do, and that's why we're still thinking about this problem. But for the moment, that's kind of a workaround. You can access those lists of albums or artists or tracks or whatever by using playlists or by using tags.
So there's some questions about audio quality in general and how ARC's audio quality differs from, let's say, Roon Remote, and then how that works with Android, how that works with DACs, etc. So I'll just speak to that a little bit. So first of all, the underlying guts of ARC's audio implementation is exactly the same as Roon Remote. So if you're listening, from your actual Roon Remote phone, the audio will be exactly the same as if you were listening on ARC with that same phone listening to the same content. As far as Android audio goes, it's kind of the wild, wild west for how different DACs interact with different phones on Android. And there's so many variations of what the phone will give us in terms of telling us its native sample rate, et cetera. So this is another area that we're actively working on right now and hope to have developments publicly available in the near future. Audio quality on ARC is a number one priority for us. So we want to make this as flawless as we can. So yes, those are on the roadmap and very high priority.
There's a question here about whether ARC will ultimately replace Roon Remote, and I guess without revealing our long-term roadmap or anything like that, I would just say I think there are some functions that ARC could potentially replace Roon Remote. For instance, browsing music and picking a zone and playing it to it, right? That could be something that we could do in the future. I think there are other parts of what Roon Remote does as far as configuring audio in your house, all of your devices, setting up your Roon core for the first time, editing functionality. There's a lot of things in Roon Remote that I don't think we would want to build a second time in ARC. Whether we move those functions somewhere else or whatever, all that's kind of up in the air for the moment. But I think in the future, our plan is to continue developing functionality in Roon, which would mean in Roon Remote, in all of our Roon apps. We have a whole bunch of projects that are in motion right now for Roon. So ARC is not taking over development. We actually, as part of the process over the last, I guess, 16 to 18 months, we've hired and built up sort of, ARC has its own development team. So ARC isn't taking away resources from Roon, and Roon isn't taking away resources. They're not competing, right? They have sort of separate teams, and Michael leads the product side on ARC specifically. But I think in the future there could be more overlap, right? And I think you'll definitely see some of that. I wouldn't call it a full replacement, and I would say that both of these products are going to continue to kind of evolve in their own ways. So yeah, this is the product mix is growing and developing over time.
Yep. And just kind of piggybacking on what Mike said, it's kind of optimized for different use cases. ARC is optimized for on the go. So it has a lot of different requirements and a lot of different needs that Roon at home does not have. So we've had to kind of push the product in certain directions. Like, for example, downloading is much more important on ARC than it would be for Roon Remote. Yeah. So there's the one more question I want to touch on, and then I think we'll wrap things up there. This was kind of answered already, but I'll just retouch on it. So in order to preserve bandwidth, are you going to make some kind of on-the-fly transcoding? Yes, that exists. So if you have DSD files, if you have FLAC files, which are sitting on your core, and
we're not going to make that. That's in ARC right now. That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. But the do nothing option, if you go to your settings, it'll say automatically pick best quality under audio. By default, that's exactly what's happening. So there is a transcoding layer that is happening from your audio on your core to the end audio that you're receiving in ARC. And you can actually go into signal path and watch exactly where that's happening and kind of see every step of the transformations that are happening to your audio. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really important for us. I've heard some feedback from people saying, well, why is the default to make the sound quality, why is it by default over mobile changing the sound quality? And ultimately, we also heard a lot of feedback during testing of people. I mean, in the US, unlimited cell phone bandwidth is pretty common, but that's not the case all around the world. And we heard from testers like 3 days in being like, wow, it's like using more bandwidth than I thought, and that kind of stuff, right? So this is a balancing act, and some people want to have bit perfect CD quality pushed from their core over the mobile network down to their phone every time, no compromises, unlimited data is fine. And other people want a product that they can pull it out at the when they get in the car and it's just going to work. And so these are options that you folks as customers or prospective customers have when you're using the app. How do you want the sound quality to be handled here? But if you're at a friend's house on Wi-Fi, you're going to hear CD quality. Nothing's going to change there. This is all about preserving the bandwidth on your mobile data. And if you don't care about that, then go to town on the settings. That's what they're there for. So
yeah. And also, just one thing to call out there is that whether it's transcoding or downloading, both have these kind of intelligent settings to detect whether you're on Wi-Fi or on mobile networks. And both of them have this kind of seam when you jump from one network type to the other. So for example, like if I just get like greedy and I download like 10 FLAC albums and then I go for a walk, we pause that process when you leave the house. So as soon as you change from Wi-Fi to mobile network, in order to not, blow up your data plan, there's a pause that happens there. You could resume if you want. You can override that setting. That's totally your prerogative if you'd like. But yeah, we were very conscious of those because, I mean, there's certain users, like we have a lot of users in Germany that were talking about, kind of very rationed data plans. And so, we even offer the offline mode feature, which we just pushed a couple of weeks ago, which enables you to totally turn off any sort of data transmission that ARC is making to a mobile network. So you could just download music and kind of use ARC, iPod style if you want to on the go. But yeah. We're listening, and please keep voicing your concerns and tell us where you want to see ARC going. Awesome.
Just two last things before we wrap up, I think. One is I see a few questions that I don't think we have time to go through with this many people in the room, about support and having trouble getting ARC working and that kind of stuff. And I just want to say, I know we have a few members of the support team on the call. This has been, I mean, I've been through every launch we've ever done at Roon, including the first one, and this was definitely one of the smoothest that we've ever seen. I mean, probably easily the smoothest. But there's a lot of people, and setting up port forwarding is a reasonably complex process, and so the support team has been working through those issues one by one. We really appreciate everyone's patience, and I can just tell you that those guys are working around the clock to get through every question. And if you have not heard back from support, I guarantee they're going to get back to you soon. But please let us know if you're still having problems. The team is there to help work through those problems, and talk to us on community, and we'll get everybody working as best we can. And the last thing I'll just say is for anybody who is not yet a Roon customer, please visit our website, visit our community site. You can ask us any questions that you have about how Roon works or how ARC works, about what the product does. Our team is on community all the time answering those kinds of questions. So questions, you can come to community, or if you're ready to just try out Roon right now, you can just go to our website. There's a 14-day free trial that you can sign up for there. And you can get your Roon core up and running. You can get ARC running. The free trial is full featured. Nothing is like paywalled or blocked. You get all of the functionality of Roon during that 14-day trial. And I hope if anybody here is kind of on the fence, you will give it a shot and let us know what you think. So yeah, I think that's probably brings us to the end here. I really appreciate. I was told that there would be hundreds of people here, and clearly there were. So it's very, very cool, and I had a good time, and I hope we can do this again soon. So thanks everybody. Thanks very much. We really appreciate all of the interest and feedback about Roon 2.0 and ARC, and we look forward to talking to everybody again soon.